Hi, I'm Brian from Rhoads, and I'm here for our beautiful bows portion of our virtual open house. Today I'm going to show you how to make one of our signature Rhodes Garden bows. Alright, the first thing you need to do to make one of these bows is to figure out what you're going to put your bow on. On a standard wreath, you're going to want a bow that's about this size. So generally we recommend one that has kind of 3 loops per side. And then we always do a center loop there also. So this is a good size for your standard wreath. If you're doing a larger wreath or a smaller wreath, you're going to want to adjust both your ribbon loop sizes as well as possibly even the type of ribbon that you're using. Ribbon comes in a bunch of different sizes and varieties. So it can be, I've got a whole assortment here with me. We've got some that is this skinny, narrow. This is number 9 ribbon. So this is good for some of your smaller items, your smaller wreaths, and just different decorative items. Like sometimes if you're doing like a little sled or something, you just want a smaller bow. And you'll often end up coming up with something that we call a spider bow, which actually has 4 loops per side, but it's more compact. And again, you can adjust the number of loop sizes depending on what you want. You don't want to overwhelm your item with a bow. Alright, the other, our standard ribbon length is number 40, or width is number 40. It's what we're going to be using today. It comes in a whole wide assortment of colors and patterns. This one happens to be a plaid. We've got some that are, you know, sparkly and glittery, and we have just more of your standard ribbon, red ribbon. Okay. Ribbon can also come in this wider length. Okay, so this wide one is good for doing big wreaths because it takes up a lot more space. You could also do it on your standard sized wreath and do a few less loops. So this one only has 2 loops per side. So it makes it a little bit smaller, but you still get that nice wide ribbon. So the first thing is to pick what style ribbon you want, what you're going to be putting it on, and then once you have your ribbon, you're ready to make your bow. So what you need to make your bow, you need to have, obviously, your ribbon, and you're going to need, if you're doing this from a scrap roll of or full roll of ribbon, you're going to need to have a pair of scissors so that you can cut it. If you're just coming in to get some ribbon to make a bow at home, generally for one of the bows that we're going to make today, it's about 3 yards. So you can always have them pre-cut your ribbon and then just go home and have your 3 yards and be ready to go. Then you might only need your scissors to cut the tails. I'll show you how to do that later. You're also going to need a piece of wire. If you don't have any of this stick wire, you can use a roll of wire. That will work too. We've also used pipe cleaners when we need to. So anything kind of has some wire in it that's going to hold it together. You don't want wire that's super thick or it's going to be really hard to get to twist, but you don't want really thin or it's not going to hold up very well. So nice medium gauge wire will work for you. Alright, in your kit you have 2 types of ribbon. One of them is going to be unwired ribbon and one of them is going to have ribbon with wire. The unwired ribbon is a little harder to work with. I actually find it easier to work with a thicker ribbon that has wire. The ones that have wire in it, you can tell, it'll say wired on it, but you can also bend it. Okay, so you can kind of make creases, you can shape it whichever way you want. Makes it very easy to make a bow, makes it easy to fix your mistakes with a bow. So I actually forgot to bring unwired ribbon home with me, so I'm just going to be showing you the wired one. But the unwired is always good to kind of practice and get these, you know, the pinches and the twists going. That way you can kind of have a scrap piece of ribbon to kind of play around with and worry about, you know, not having all those crinkles. So I'm going to start with my roll of ribbon here. I'm going to drop that down to the floor. I'm left-handed, so you might do this slightly backwards from me, although maybe in the video it'll come out facing the right direction for you. But I was taught by Michelle at work at Rhoads Garden, and she is our expert bow maker. She can make the hugest bows ever. Mine aren't quite as nice as hers, but our schedules didn't coordinate for her to do this video today, so it's going to be me. But she has taught me well, and over the past few years I've been doing this. So I start with my center loop. Some of our other designers start with the side loops and add the center loop last. So there's multiple ways to do this, but I'm going to show you starting with your center loop. So I usually measure my loop by about the size of my hand. So I kind of take my ribbon and put it around my hand like this, and then make it a little bit bigger. I get the good angles here for you. And then I give it a pinch in the middle. So you want to get a good pinch. I'm going to show you this a couple times and from a couple different angles, so you don't have to worry if you don't quite get it all and see everything in the first one. Once you have that center pinch, so this is going to be your loop, you got it pinched in the back, you're going to take your ribbon, because this ribbon here has a shiny backside and the velvet front side. So we want to make sure that all of our loops have the front side out. So you're going to need to give your ribbon a twist. So while holding this, you're going to kind of give it a good twist, and then use these fingers to kind of hold it down, because your thumb is still holding your center twist, and your other fingers are going to be holding the back side, and you're going to come out and make a loop. Okay, so kind of like that. And again, depending on the size of your item will determine the size of your loops. Also, depending on how big you need your bow, you might have to pick different ribbon. This particular ribbon is very thick and holds up well, so you can make really big loops without them flopping. If you have a thinner, floppier ribbon, then you can't really make these big loops on it because they're just going to flop and hang down and not look nice. This is a nice thick ribbon. Alright, so I did my one on the other side, so I'm going to show you again. So again, we have the ribbon going the right direction. We're going to come around. I'm going to try to make mine all about the same size, but as you go down, you could make each loop a little bit bigger if you wanted that look, or you can make them all the same size. You can make the second one be a little bit bigger and then the next one smaller. There's a lot of different ways that you can make a bow in different shapes. Alright, so once you have it on this side, you're going to take this and again do a little twist to flip that out. Okay, so we have our twist. And again, you're using your fingers to kind of hold it down as you get it all in place. This is going to be very thick and very awkward while you're getting started figuring all this out. It takes practice to get your hands strong enough to be able to hold all of these loops all at the same time. You can always kind of bring your ribbons down together and match it up. Okay, they're about the same length. That way you don't have really super long ones on one side and really short ones on the other side. Again, it takes practice to get that. So again, I'm giving a little bit of a twist to my back side. It's going to be hard to see the back because I've got my fingers holding everything in place. And one more little loop. Okay, and then twist. It's a lot of twisting, a lot of straining. I think the ribbon that we tried to give you was a little bit thinner, so it should be a little easier to work with. And again, the unwired is going to be thinner and a little easier. But again, without having that wire, it makes it a little difficult. Okay, so now I have all of my loops, 3 loops on each side. Okay, and then I'm going to need to create tails. Now what we're going to do to make a tail is we're going to make an extra large loop. So I'm going to measure down, and again, you can make huge tails, you can make short tails, whatever look you're going for. But you're pretty much going to just take your ribbon, loop it back up so we have this big loop down at the bottom here. And then kind of try to get that last loop back under your fingers so you're holding it all in. So that's going to be our bow. We're then going to take our wire, okay, and go through your center loop and go through your tail loop, okay, and bring it around to the back side. This is where it can all go wrong, okay, because you're going to have to move your fingers from the back side, and if you release too soon, it's all going to come unraveled. So this, you have to do this a little carefully, okay, but you're just going to kind of get it all around. So I'm pulling it tight. I can now move my thumb, but I'm still holding it from the back. I'm then going to put my thumb back over top of the wire inside of my center loop, bring this to the back, pull it really tight, and give it a good twist. Okay, and if all goes well, you should be able to hold the wire and nothing falls out. Okay, It might take some practice. You might have to do this a few times. It could get really frustrating, and you might just throw the whole ribbon across the room and say, I can't do this. But don't worry, keep practicing. You will get it. It definitely takes a lot of practice to get all of that done. All right, so then from your back side, for you with your pre-cut pieces of ribbon, you don't have to measure how long of a tail you're going to have. Just take whatever ribbon you have left and tuck up that end. If you want shorter tails, you can still make it shorter, and then you can just cut off that excess. So here's where the scissors come in handy. Just going to go to the back, cut it nice and tight, so that way all of your mess is on that back side there, but you don't have a lot of extra ribbon. You want to kind of keep it pretty tight in there. Okay, so that is that part of the bow, and then we're going to need to cut our tails, unless you like the loop look. So we're going to bring it down, kind of pull it taut, and kind of give it a little pinch at the bottom. That kind of keeps your tails even sized. Take your scissors and go in between and give it a little snip. Okay, again, if you're working with wired ribbon, you want to make sure that you take your scissors all the way to the back, the ribbon all the way to the back, because at the back part of a scissor, it's going to be better to cut wire than up here at the front. You're going to dull your blade on your scissors if you cut too far forward. So, you can leave your tails just like this if you wanted, or you can do a couple different things on these ones. So you can cut them at an angle, so you can just kind of come up and do a little snip directly across. I tend to like having more of that little triangle cutout, the V shape in there. So to do that, I usually fold. You could cut one snip here and one snip there, but I save some time and I fold my ribbon in half this way. So I took it, just fold it in. Okay, so that way you have half the ribbon. And then you're just going to take your scissors right at the edge there and give it a snip. And it cuts both sides at once, so that way you kind of have more of a finished edge. It's fine to leave it straight. It's fine to leave it at just if you just want it as an angle. It's really all up to you and whatever look you want for your wreath and bow. You might not even be putting this on a wreath. You might be putting it on a sled. You might just be putting it on the house, on your windows, depending on how you want to do this. So that is your bow. Okay, I'm going to show this to you again, try to get you a different angle so that you can really see what I'm doing. Okay, here is ribbon try number 2. So I have another length of ribbon here. Okay, this one happens to be a plaid. This one is a little thinner and flimsier than the other ribbon that I was using before. So again, like I was saying, you're not going to be able to make as big of loops. This one's going to get a little floppier. So I'm going to start again taking my hand, okay, and taking my ribbon, wrapping it around my hand to kind of give me a good size for a center loop. Okay, and then you kind of see the ribbon. You want to make sure that it overlaps. Okay, so you roll it all the way around. So the whole bottom of your hand is going to be covered with ribbon. That way when you give a pinch, you actually should have a little bit of ribbon that sticks up. That way you don't lose your center loop there. Okay, so give it a pinch. Okay, again, nice big pinch right in there. Okay, you can fluff up your center now, or you can do that later, either way. All right, and then we're going to give a twist. This one's going to be a little harder to see the front and back side, but this one happens to be flannel on this side and not flannel on that side, so there is a difference. So we're going to make sure to give a twist. Okay, so we've got, here we go, give a twist. Again, hold my fingers over top of that twist, and then I'm going to wrap out my loop here. And I kind of gather the ribbon first, and then kind of put it under my fingers. Okay, it's going to take some time and practice to do that gather. All right, then my ribbon is backwards again, so I lift up my index finger. Okay, I give a twist. Kind of put my index finger back down over top of it to hold it down. Okay, and then we finish out our loop. It can also take some practice getting these loops about the same size. You're going to have to kind of eyeball it. If I want this one a little bit bigger, all I have to do is just lift up my index finger, slide up my ribbon a little bit, and that can adjust my loop size. It's really hard to adjust your loop sizes once they're made, so you want to try to do that as you get going. Okay, my ribbon is now facing the right direction on this side because it alternates back and forth. Okay, so I don't need to do a twist. I just need to do another little turn. Okay, and gather again, pinch, get it up under my finger, and hold it all down. Then I do the twist. So I lift up my index finger once my other fingers are holding the rest of it down. Give it a twist. Okay, so I have the twist, pinch, and bring it around. Okay, again, this is going to take a lot of practice. Okay, I'm measuring out my loops. They should be the same size. I'm measuring them over here to make sure that they line up with these ones. We're all good. Again, I'm the right side, so all I need to do while I'm holding all of my stuff, you can see my hand is not as straight anymore. It's starting to curve out as I'm trying to hold all of these layers. Okay, so this really does take your whole hand and a lot of practice. Okay, so then we're going to loop it around again. And I'm give it a pinch, tuck it under my hand. And then of course on this side again, we need to twist. It doesn't matter whether you do this with the left loop first or the right loop first. It really all depends. Again, I'm left-handed, so I tend to make my loops. I do that one, and then this one, and then that one, and then this one. Yours might go the other direction, and it's perfectly fine. It's not going to change your bow at all. It's just a matter of what's comfortable in your hand and what you need to do. Okay, again, so I'm back to my ribbon being the right size. I've got my 3 loops on either side, and I'm going to take and make my tail. So I'm going to take the rest of my ribbon here and loop it up. Okay, I want that to be a little bit longer. Again, you always adjust before you cut. It's hard to do it the other way. And again, I want to kind of gather this a little bit more for my final one. Again, put it under my index finger and hold it all down. Okay, so my fingers are really, the index finger is doing most of the work, the index finger and the thumb, and the other ones are helping to hold everything in place. And here is my bow. Okay, now we're going to take our wire. Again, you're going to go in through the center loop and through the center of your tails loop here. Go in around, so we're kind of in here, and it gets awkward for me to do at this angle and everything else, so I might lose this one, but that's okay. All right, so I'm kind of going over my thumb, okay, as I'm coming in here, and I want to kind of get my index finger up to help hold this down while I remove my thumb. So my index finger is helping to hold this ribbon down while I move my thumb out, and then I put my thumb right back on top. Index finger comes out, comes back around to the back side to help hold everything down. So in between my fingers, I have my wire, so everything is still being held in place. I pull my wire nice and tight and give a nice tight twist. And I usually do 2 or 3 twists just to really make sure that you have it held in place there. And then we're all set. Okay, so I'm going to cut this one free from my roll of ribbon here. Okay, and then I'm going to move my wires to the back, and I'm going to cut my tails. And on this one, before I cut this, I have this big loop. I'm going to go ahead and cut my V right in here. So I'm going to just fold this ribbon right in half. Again, another little time saver here. And so I have it all folded, and I'm just going to kind of cut like this. Okay. And that gives me my cut loops with saving 1 extra step. Once I'm done with that, I usually come through, and that's when I kind of adjust my loops a little bit, fluff them back out. Trying to do this in slow-mo made it a little bit more difficult for me to get my loops going the right way. But you can kind of see a little bit of that twist in there. That's okay, because we can just pop out our center loop, and that kind of hides that a little bit. So that's all going to be okay. If you wanted to add extra tails, like if you wanted to have 4 tails, maybe you wanted some that were a little bit longer and some that were shorter, you can go ahead and do that. I usually put everything in, I get this bow done first, and then once I have this bow done, then I go and add other things. So I can add another set of tails back in here, and I just take a second piece of wire, do the same thing, feed it up through, I add my loops in the bottom, so You see, so I'd make basically another loop. So while everything is here, I just kind of take my ribbon, I pinch it down under my finger. I would make a really big, long set of loops here. Bring it back under, kind of give it that pinch again. Bring it up under here. I'm going to make this one up a little higher. I can always cut that extra piece off, but you want to make sure you gather it. And give it a pinch here. And then I'm going to take another piece of wire and feed it up through, and then through this center loop. Gets a little tricky. Let me cut this extra piece off here. And get rid of the wire. Okay. So I'm going to feed this. I have my wire. I'm going to feed this up through the center and then kind of around. It gets a little trickier. And through the middle, my middle loops. You just want to make sure that, sorry, this is a lot more difficult for me to do while I'm trying to demonstrate to you. It's a little easier to do when I'm just doing it. Once you start doing this for a while, it just comes naturally and you don't have to really think about it. But when you have to slow down and actually explain it to somebody, it becomes a little bit more tricky. Okay, so I'm still holding on to all of my pieces of ribbon. I have my wire, and I'm going to give it an extra twist around the back. And that gives me my extra set of loops. Okay, it was a little easier to show you from back beyond. All right, so I've got my extra tails here. I'm going to give you a cut. I'm going to do that same thing where I take, before I cut it in half, I'm just going to take this and fold it in half. To do this, you kind of want to judge the strength of your scissors and the thickness of your ribbon. For thinner ribbons, this works really well. For that first one that I was showing you, it's really thick ribbon, and it makes it difficult to try to cut through both layers at the same time, especially when it's folded in half, because then you're cutting through 4 layers instead of just 2. So it makes it a little harder. All right, now I still have, you can kind of see I got these little loopies sitting up here from this extra set of tails that I added. So I'm just going to give them a snip and cut them off. And that way you don't see them. Your floor is going to be covered with little pieces of ribbon, and that's okay. Again, I'm going to refluff up my loops here. Another great thing with using the wired ribbon is that you can fix up a lot of mistakes by just refluffing your ribbon loops here and making them all round. If you'd like to have a puffier bow, you can make this center loop bigger and make it more of a full loop. So some of our designers will make a bow like that. All right, so this one happens to have 4 streamers. You could do this with the extra set of streamers with a different type of ribbon, so a coordinating ribbon if you wanted it to all just have extra long red tails, or you can do it this way. So really you can start getting creative with your bows and kind of doing any number of things, and you will constantly just kind of play it around. If you want more of an all-around bow, you just kind of bring these up a little bit more, and that way it's all round. There's so many different things that you can do with bows. You can even I have one here that I made as a double layer, so I've got this skinnier number 9 bow. This is the spider bow that I was talking about, where it has the 4 loops on each side. Okay, and then I have 3 loops behind it. So this is a bigger double layer bow. Okay, so really you can start getting creative. I'm doing pretty much anything and making your own very beautiful bows. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual open house. We hope to see you this weekend at our in-person open house or at some of our other virtual events. Thank you. Bye.